You could feel the stadium take a nervous breath the moment Aaron Rodgers clutched his left wrist and walked toward the sideline. Not the cinematic groan of a season-ending injury, just the small, terrible hush that tells you something important has been quietly rearranged. By the time the final whistle blew, Pittsburgh had a 34-12 win, but the aftermath left everyone asking a different question. What did we just win, and at what cost? Reuters. He started the day looking like a reminder of everything the Steelers hoped he might still be: efficient, decisive, and calm. Rodgers completed 9 of 15 for 116 yards and a touchdown before an awkward sequence late in the second quarter, where 2 defensive penalties and contact to his left wrist turned a drive into a tangle of flags and worry. X-rays later showed a small fracture in that non-throwing wrist, the kind of injury that reads better on a medical chart than it feels under a helmet. The team handled it like a problem to manage, not a narrative to explode. They sat him for the second half, rode out the rest with Mason Rudolph, and let the defense provide the fireworks. Reuters. The ink on the rulebook was almost as important as the ink on the injury report. 2 plays late in the half, hits ruled roughing the passer, flipped yardage, and gave Pittsburgh life. The league's game day accountability review flagged those moments for examination, and this weekend the NFL closed the book on that question. Myles Murphy and Joseph Ossai were reviewed and were not fined for their hits on Rodgers. In a sport where enforcement feels both hyper-technical and intensely human, that decision sent in a message. The league judged the contact acceptable within the moment's chaos. Athlonsports.com. But not fined and not consequential are different things. For the Bengals, escaping fines keeps players on the field and avoids big payroll penalties. For Pittsburgh, avoiding a multi-week absence for Rodgers would have been a different kind of victory entirely. Instead, the team must balance optimism with caution. Rodgers returned to practice later in the week as a limited participant, wearing a brace and testing the wrist's function in short bursts. The official injury report listed him as questionable for the Week 12 road trip to Chicago, a status that keeps the drama alive until the 90-minute pregame window. That uncertainty reshapes a game plan in ways that don't show up on stat sheets. Play calls get safer, early down designs change, and a coaching staff tucks a safety net under every decision. Reuters. There's a weird double life to injuries like this. On paper, a fracture that doesn't demand surgery is good news. In the locker room, that same news is a slow, grinding anxiety. A veteran quarterback can mask limitations with craft and cadence, but the NFL has a harsh habit of exposing anything you try to hide. Timing slips, footwork tweaks, a non-throwing wrist still matters for handoffs, ball security, and the tiny balance that lets a veteran throw on rhythm. Mike Tomlin and the staff will make a competitive call. Is it risking long-term health for one regular season game? The honest answer is that coach decisions now are both medical and moral. They are about wins, yes, but also about preserving the man who's next to you in the locker room. Reuters. Even with Rodgers' fate unclear, the game itself gave you the shorthand for Pittsburgh's season. Defensive opportunism, saving an offense that's still finding its way. 2 defensive touchdowns, turnovers turned into points. That formula keeps working, and it's a brilliant stopgap. But stopgaps aren't structures, they're bandages. If the Steelers are to make a genuine run, they'll need more than turnovers and heroics. They'll need Rodgers at full clarity, a healthier running game, and an offense that can produce clock-eating drives rather than scoreboard sparks. Until then, every win will come wrapped in an asterisk. NFL penalty stats tracker. There's also a human ledger here. For Rodgers, 41, and still chasing a late career chapter that feels both cinematic and fragile, this is the kind of midseason test that asks for a decision. Play now and push the story forward, or rest and hope the season doesn't move on without you. For Mason Rudolph, it's another audition. Not a Hollywood monologue, but the steady, unglamorous kind of work that wins coaches' trust. For the Steelers' locker room, every update will change the mood: confidence, caution, or quiet panic. Football is a numbers game, but it's also a psychology game, and wrist pains have more to do with timing and trust than with bone density. Reuters. Look ahead a few beats, and the schedule will not be kind. Chicago is coming to Soldier Field on Sunday, followed by Josh Allen and the Bills at home the next week. That sequence is exactly the sort of pressure test a division leader needs to survive. If Rodgers can play, even in a brace, it stabilizes more than the passing game. It steadies the team's identity. If he can't, Rudolph faces a short week and a chance to either steady the ship or make the front office sweat. Either way, the Steelers can't pretend this is a single-week problem. It's a hinge for their season. Reuters, here's the final, harder truth. Wins paper over cracks for a while, but the cracks tell the real story. The league's decision not to fine the Bengals hitters closes one chapter. Rodgers' limited practice opens another, and the team's choices over the next 72 hours will say more than any headline. If you're rooting for Pittsburgh, savor the victory. It was earned. But keep the remote close, because this season's plot is still writing itself, and the next twist could be a swan song or a second act. Remember the image from the weekend, a veteran quarterback holding a wrist as if checking a fragile truth, a backup walking in with the steady, unshowy calm of someone who knows his job, and a defense turning chaos into a scoreboard sermon. That picture will sit with you longer than a fine or a review ever will. The question now isn't whether the league judged the hits fairly. It's whether the Steelers can judge their own risk well enough to finish the story they started.